Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 147, and that's show a review all the comics I read this week in one show. So let's get started. We have 23 books this week, so it's a pretty big pile. So let's go to worst book of the week to best book of the week, and number 23 is Archangel issue 1 from IDW. So this is a book I kind of just got because the cover looked really cool, but then the description looked interesting too, and I thought, hey, why not? Give it a try. And I just kind of felt bored with it. It's very political driven. Not that I don't usually like political driven stories, but I just felt that this was very bogged down with a lot of heavy political thought, but not a lot of plot progression or any hook for me to really say, I need to get issue 2. So I gave Archangel issue 2 2 stars. And that's number 23. Moving on to number 22, which is Inferno Ressurection issue 3, which I probably will drop after this issue, even though we only have 2 issues left. It's from Zenescope Entertainment, and, you know, I usually like this character, Mercy. I've read her other stuff in the past, but I haven't been able to connect to the story as much as I wanted to. It's about Mercy trying to, you know, be this demon hunter, and she now has a little bit more of a crew, like other people that are like her, and that's more, I don't want to say discovery of that, but that's, you know, we're dealing with that a little bit more in this issue. Yeah, not a big hook for me here. Artwork is not too bad. I gave it 2.5 stars, that issue, and that is number 22. Moving on to number 21, sadly to see this book so low, and that is Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death, issue 5, and this is the penultimate issue of Poison Ivy. Now, one thing I loved about the beginning of this miniseries is the relationships that Poison Ivy has had between Harley, between Catwoman, between even the new characters. But the weird section of Poison Ivy were these plant babies. And now the plant babies are like 20-something-year-olds in 6 months, and they want to party. They want to, you know, live life, and that's the issue of plant babies. So yeah, it focuses on the part that I thought was really weird about the series, and still really weird, and not really why I'm getting the series. So hopefully next issue we learn a little bit more about the mystery of these deaths. That's the direction I want to go, more than plant babies. So Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death, issue 5 gets 2.5 stars. And that is number 21, I think. Let me see. It is number 21. So now we're moving on to number 20, which is Spidey issue 6. Now, story wasn't too bad. It's a Spider-Man, Iron Man team up. Old Iron Man team up, though. You can see how old this costume is. So it's very much in the early age of Iron Man. People don't even know Iron Man's Tony Stark. That's the old age of Iron Man. But the real reason this is so low is the artwork. It's really not detailed a lot, and I just don't really like this style of artwork. I definitely like Bradshaw's artwork a little bit more. Is more detailed in the beginning of the series. But I do like the story between Gwen and Peter. I think that's really fun, and that Peter, you know, really likes Gwen, but doesn't really know how to axe her out throughout the issue, and then misses his opportunity. So the high school stuff was a lot of fun. I would say the Spider-Man stuff was actually a little repetitive from what we've been seeing. And, you know, the one thing I like about Spidey is that it's grounded, it's the early years, but at the same time it started getting a little repetitive. So hopefully it'll get more of a plot, that we can follow issue by issue. So we'll see. So I gave this issue 3 stars. Again, mostly because of artwork, but, you know, if you really enjoy the story, I say pick up this issue. So that is number, let's see, number 20. So now in that, I gave that 3 stars. So now we're moving on to number 19, which is Hellchild issue 3 from Zenescope. And I haven't been able to be hooked onto the series as much as I wanted to. I think it has a lot of potential. Still really interested in Hades' daughter, but I feel like the plot's going a little slow. You know, if you're going to go this slow, I want Hades' daughter to be more likable, but it's more of like going with the flow of her becoming a vampire and Van Helsing just saying sorry a lot throughout the issue. Artwork is average. Again, I don't have it to show it to you, but it's pretty average artwork, and it's a little slower, this story. I kind of expected more character building in this mini-series, but we'll see with the next 3 issues. So again, number 19 was Hellchild issue 3, which I gave 3 stars. So moving on to number 18, which is something I'm reading digitally now. Powerman and Iron Fist issue 4. I like Powerman and Iron Fist. It's usually kind of a middle of a pile book for me though, and that's why I kind of demoted it to a digital series for me. But I love Iron Fist and Powerman's chemistry in this series. That's why I'm picking it up. But the main plot with their old secretary, like, it became, I guess, more important in this issue, but still not interesting in me. And obviously, because this is their final battle between these characters, it builds up to, like, hey, I never was interested in these characters anyway, so I'm not as invested in this battle. But this is just the beginning where we're actually seeing Powerman and Iron Fist admit, hey, we're teaming up now. So I think it doesn't matter if you didn't like this issue as much, there's still a definite great direction the series can go. So I give it 3 stars. Again, this arc wasn't my favorite part of the issue or the series yet, but I think it has a lot of great possibilities for the future when we get to see a new arc. Alright, now we're moving on to number 17, which is Wonder Woman issue 52, which is the last issue of Meredith Finch's run on Wonder Woman, which is sad. I really do like Meredith Finch's writing on Wonder Woman, and excited to see what project she has next. And I guess David Finch left a little while ago, but I love Mandaka's artwork for this series. Really enjoy it. Such great detail. Same artist from the Little Mermaid miniseries from Zenescope. If you've never read it, it's great. And this issue, if you really like the Firstborn story, it kind of wraps that up, where we see Wonder Woman tries to save Zeke, but can't. So it really shows Wonder Woman's personality of, you know, how much she'll go through to try to save somebody, but also her personality now as the God of War and just the daughter of Zeus. So if you enjoy those type of aspects, you get a lot of that. And it was a good ending to this arc. Now again, I'm not a huge fan of the Firstborn story and more of this heavy Greek mythology, so I wasn't attached to this issue as much, but it's still a very well written issue, and I enjoyed the aspects and personality of Wonder Woman and the artwork. So overall, I did give Wonder Woman issue 52 3 stars. If you've been enjoying this arc, I think it's a good ending, but if you don't love the Greek mythology portion of Wonder Woman as much, you might feel a little bit like me. It was a little lower just because of that aspect. So Wonder Woman issue 52 gets 3 stars, and that was number 17, I'm pretty sure. Alright, now we're moving on to number 16, which is Civil War 2 issue 0, which wasn't a bad issue. You know, it's a pretty good introduction to some of these characters. War Machine kind of going into a bigger political, maybe going into a bigger political position. Captain Marvel not really knowing if she wants to live the hero biz anymore. Some, I guess, political events with Inhumans, because there is a city that burns because of an Inhuman. And then Jen trying to get the Jester out of jail, which is interesting because they said he never murdered anyone, but I'm pretty sure he murdered Scott Lang. But I guess he didn't because Scott Lang's alive again. So did he murder him? I don't know. But so that was, you know, a big part of the issue also. And I would say this issue is a little slower than a Free Comic Book Day book, and that's why it's a bit lower on my list, but I thought it was not a bad introduction to Civil War 2, even though I kind of wish there was more aspects of, like, yeah, now I kind of know what direction this event's going in. I still don't know, but at least the character interactions were interesting and political, which you want with Civil War. So Civil War 2, issue 0 gets 3.5 stars for me. That's number 16. We're moving on to number 15, which I actually did get this issue this week, and that is Superman Wonder Woman issue 29, which is the penultimate issue of the Final Days of Superman, which I thought was the Super League story, but I guess it's not. I guess it's only the Final Days of Superman. Maybe they're both. But yeah, this issue is a little bit slower than last. Last issue was really well done, but it's our Supermen trying to defeat the Solar Flare Superman, and also Lois, you know, being in this, both Loises being in this issue, trying to do the same thing, trying to defeat Solar Flare Superman. Also, we have the Lois and Clark from the Superman Lois and Clark book, pre-New 52 family, learn about this new Fortress of Solitude, so that was pretty interesting. And that's most of the issue. You get a little glimpse of Supergirl in the end also, where I guess she's going to join the battle to try to defeat super flare in the next issue, or Superman solar flare in the next issue. So it wasn't too bad. This is the same artist as Earth 2, so as much as I do like the actual profiles of the characters, I do think that the background could have a little bit more detail. That's always been my problem with this art style, so yeah, I definitely would like some more detail there. But overall, artwork wasn't too bad, and it wasn't a bad issue. It's just a little bit of a slower issue compared to last week. So Superman, Wonder Woman, issue 29 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 15. So now we're moving on to number 14, which is Spider-Man, issue 4. Again, this book's a bit lower than I want it to be, but it's a slower issue. It's Ganke and Miles talking a lot about gold balls. And, you know, more about representation, I guess. You know, that was definitely a big topic in this issue, and what Gold Balls represents as a character, and Ganke tells Gold Balls that Miles is Spider-Man, and Miles gets a little pissed off about that, runs off, and almost gets hit by missiles, and now he's going to fight some known Spider-Man villains like Black Cat and Hammerhead. So we'll see where that goes. But the cliffhanger was like, oh, okay, we've seen this a billion times. One of Spider-Man villains, let's fight. And I'm kind of getting tired of Black Cat stories, so, yeah, it's a little bit of a slower issue. I think this is a bit of a forgettable issue, but it wasn't bad. There were some good interaction between Miles and Ganke. I like Gold Balls in this series. I think it's great that they added him. But yeah, slower issue, and again, doesn't have that wow factor that the past Miles Morales series has had for me. So Spider-Man issue 4 gets 3.5 stars. And that's number 14. Moving on to number 13, a new story arc for the Beauty, issue 7. In this issue, again, going in a new direction. I don't know how to feel about that, that we're getting all these kind of side stories before we get, you know, going back to our detectives from the first story arc, but artwork great as always, and it's a cool story of this guy who, you know, went down a wrong path and takes the Beauty to go down, hopefully a right path for himself. So I like that aspect in how we do get to see this individual's character, why he would take the Beauty, and this is the Beauty before it became like a phenomenon. It was when not a lot of people had the Beauty, so it's an interesting aspect to learn a little bit more about the world, but I don't know how many issues I want to see of that. I do want to continue the story that we did leave off on with our last volume, or our last story arc. So the Beauty issue 7 gets 3.5 stars for me, and that was number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is Injustice Gods Among Us, year 5, issue 10. This book was fun. Again, it's kind of this middle radar, because it's like, I kind of want Injustice to end, but at the same time, it does give us some good character stories. And with this issue, is a good character story between Lex and Bizarro. Bizarro wanting to save his friend and learning he can't, and Superman learning that Bizarro is out there, and Lex created him, and Lex does not want Superman to find out that he created Bizarro. So it's Lex being Lex, but at the same time still being a friend to Superman, which is another great aspect of Injustice Gods Among Us. So it was a fun character-driven issue, especially for Lex, because he's not this kind of menacing villain. He is a friend to Superman, but he's still Lex Luthor, and I think that's such a fun aspect to the series. And great artwork, really like the facial expressions here, and yeah, so I gave this 3.5 stars for Injustice Gods Among Us, year 5, issue 10. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 11, which is a new series from Dark Horse called May, issue 1, which I will say I really enjoy the artwork because it has this kind of like storybook type feel to it. And this is about this girl who is now college age, but her sister left for like 7 years, her older sister, and she doesn't really know her that well, and she gets a phone call while she's visiting her best friend. You know, they're at college, so they're catching up, and she has to pick up her sister from jail, and she finally sees her sister again, and we learn that the sister was in this mystical place, and obviously our main character and her best friend do not believe the sister, but after some events, they might have to start believing. So I really like the artwork. I think that's what really attached me to the book. And I like the concept for the most part. Again, if it's a big week, I don't know if it really hooked me to get issue 2. But it was an interesting story to read. And, you know, kind of a different story. So I gave May issue 1 3.5 stars. And that's number 11. Moving on to number 10, which is Invincible issue 128. I think this would be a bit higher if Ryan Ottley was doing the work, but right now we do have Corey Walker doing the work, who is the original artist from Invincible, which I like the nostalgia idea of it, but I do like Ryan Ottley's artwork a little bit more. It's a bit more detailed for Invincible. But overall, you know, we get to just see more of Mark hanging out with his family, see what he's missed. Also, the Cyclops creature having a parallel of not having a good relationship right now, a romantic relationship. And now it's leading into the next issue dealing with Mark going back to Earth and seeing his parents and hopefully Eve's parents also, and just seeing what's happened in Earth because they've been gone for such a long time. So I like this issue for, again, the emotional parts between Eve, between Mark and his daughter, but it is a bit of a slower issue compared to past issues, and also, again, the artwork, I like Ryan Ottley's style a little bit more than Walker's. So Invincible issue 128 gets 3.5 stars. That's number 10. So now we're moving on to number 9, which is Silver Surfer, issue 4, and you know I love this series. This is a little bit of a slower issue, but I still really enjoyed it. It's the world's rooting for Norrin, seeing Norrin recover and defeat his demons, and that's most of the issue. No, it's not a big issue, but you also get to see more of the connection between Dawn and Norrin. My favorite part of the issue being badass Alicia using one of Daredevil's gifts, which is her like kind of baton going on. You actually see Braille on the baton, so I thought that was really cool. I love what they're doing with Alicia in this book. I'm really glad that they're utilizing that character. So yeah, I enjoyed those aspects. There's definitely a lot of fun character moments between Norrin and Dawn, between Alicia, and just seeing the Avengers in Michael Allred's art style. I really enjoy because I do like his art. Here's a really cool 2-page spread there. So yeah, overall, it was a fun issue. It's a little bit of a slower issue because it's more of an aftermath issue, but I'm excited to see where it goes and see where Dawn and Norrin's adventures go. So Silver Surfer issue 4 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 9. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 8, which is The Astonishing Ant Man issue 8. Didn't make my top 5. Actually made pick of the week 2 months in a row, but this time it didn't make my top 5. Because it is more of like this side B story of Scott pretty much recruiting the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which if you guys didn't know, Nick Spencer also wrote the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, so you get that vibe here. It's a funny issue, you get to see Beetle again, which is great, but it doesn't really progress the story that much, and that's why it's not as high as, you know, I want it to be. But it's good art style, not so much for the action, but just for the talking head moments we get to see in this series. But, you know, the action's still fun, too. It's pretty clean here, as you can see. And in the end of the issue, of course, I love my Cassie moments, where we get to see Cassie does go to Cross Technologies, and she gets caught, so we'll see how that works out for her. But we get to see her use her abilities, which was a lot of fun, and it's a great cliffhanger, so it definitely gets me excited for next issue, but this was a little bit of a filler issue, getting into the bigger story with Cross. So, Astonishing Ant Man issue 8 gets 3.5 stars, still worth picking up, but I did like the last 2 issues a little bit more from the past months, but still really excited to see what happens with issue 9. Alright, so now moving on to number 7, which is All New Wolverine, issue 8. Which, the artist did change, and I will say, when the camera zoomed out, I wish the book was a little more detailed. So here you get to see a lot of figures, but yeah, just more detailed art. But the close-ups were pretty good, and overall the art style was, it worked for the series. Like here's a good example, but here's also a good example where there could be more detail when it's zoomed out a bit. But, book was a lot of fun. You know, what I really like about this is Laura trying to live a normal life, and it's an aspect you never really seen with Laura. You know, it's her being a young 20-year-old in Manhattan, but also, I don't want to say being like a mother to Gabby, but yeah, like kind of being this bigger sister mother to Gabby, and Gabby's so much fun, you know, her learning about life. I love how Tom Taylor writes her, and how he writes Laura also. But the end, we get to see, you know, Old Man Logan's gonna probably jump in soon, but it's, it's Wolverine having to jump into, I always forget his name, Fin Fom something. Let me see. There was his name. Fing Fang Foom. And actually, he appeared in Spidey or another book. He appeared in another book this week. I want to say it was Spidey. So he appeared in 2 books. Who knew? Who knew, I mean. But yeah, it was a lot of fun that the next issue is going to be in, like, a dragon's body. I mean, that's amazing. And there's another really cool scene that I enjoyed was when Maria calls on the phone for Wolverine, and she answers herself. Like, Wolverine's like, oh, well, ignore it. And then Maria's able to answer on her phone herself. Even if you ignore Maria, you cannot ignore Maria Hill. And then even the beginning where there's this old lady who notices Gabby's dog, it says, is she blind? Like, this is not a dog, it's a Wolverine. So again, those, like, fun aspects where you have these normal, like, oh, picking up a phone and not wanting to answer, or walking your dog, but putting it in a Wolverine style really makes why I love All New Wolverine. And why I gave All New Wolverine issue 8 4 stars. Really had fun. You know, the plot for, like, this box thing I wasn't as interested in, but there was a lot of fun moments that were brought to us to this issue. So I'm going to give All New Wolverine 4 stars, and that is number 7. Alright, now we're moving on to number 6, which is, let's see, number 6 is International Iron Man issue 3. Yeah, you know, I'm still, like, curious of where the plot's going, but I really like Tony's relationship with Cassandra, and I really like how they move it from the past to the present, even though Tony looks pretty weird in the past with his long hair. But, yeah, you know, I really like how much Cassandra has changed as a character, and that we learn that she's a honeypot character, so she was trying to get Tony to be on her parents' side and be a spy for her parents, and I thought that was very interesting. So I like the chemistry between Tony and Cassandra, and that's what makes it this issue. And even small moments where Tony just started to create a camouflage when he was 20, and then you see that camouflage used at the same aspect, but obviously more advanced when they're older. So I really like those small aspects, and that's what's really hooked me to in International Iron Man. So I give International Iron Man issue 3 4 stars. I thought it was a pretty solid issue. Alright, so now moving on to number 5, which is Titans Hunt issue 8. It did make my top 5. And it's mostly, you know, the Teen Titans realizing, hey, we were the Teen Titans, but we've grown up and we are actually the Titans, defeating their villain, seeing Bumblebee use her power, which was cool, seeing Karen pregnant using her Bumblebee powers, and then having the baby and everything. But, you know, I guess the nod that we do have another Titan coming up and saying, oh, who's the other Titan? And then we have this electricity, this lightning burst. And it's pretty obvious that it's probably going to be Wally West. And that excites me. Is that the big surprise for DC Rebirth? And that makes sense, because usually with these kind of crisis events, I know that DC Rebirth is not a crisis, but similar to a crisis, it usually has to do with a Flash. So if it has to do with Wally, I'm pretty excited for that. And to see how they deal with New 52 Wally, this version of Wally, what they're going to do with that. So they're doing it with Superman. Why not do it for Wally West also? So Titans Hunt issue 8 gets 4 stars, and that's number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Superman American Alien issue 7. I really enjoyed this issue. I am sad that Superman American Alien is ending. I think it's been a really great series overall. And I'm gonna miss it. And this issue, even though I'm not a huge Lobo fan, I loved it for Clark. I love that when Lobo is explaining pretty much his Kryptonian heritage, he's like, no, I am not from Krypton. I'm from Kansas. And I love how proud he is about being from Kansas and being in Earth, you know, kind of being a human, but obviously being an alien, which is the aspect of Superman in general. And then that ending where Superman's hurt and Lois comes in and kind of misses the story of the year to visit the person she loves, and Clark's like, why are you here? You should be, you know, doing the story. And Lois is like, no, I want to be here with you. I love you. And she finally says it, because this whole issue is her, you know, not being able to admit those feelings. So, I love that. And even though the artwork's really dark, I love that the colors are so bright. And I think it really worked for this issue, is those dark lines and really bright backgrounds. And I really enjoyed that. So overall, I gave Superman American Alien issue 7, 4.5 stars. And that's number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is a book I love and a mini-series that's almost over, but I've been really enjoying. Sunflower issue 5, which is from 451 Media Group. Just to show you an example of this artwork, because I have to show an example of this artwork. Let me get there. It's just gorgeous. So this is, we have our main character dropping to the water there, and then in the water. Just some gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. Every page is just beautiful. So I love the art for Sunflower. But what also is so interesting about this issue is our main character just getting physically hurt so much, but she's been emotionally damaged for so long that she doesn't care. And then learning that maybe the head of this cult thing could be her husband, but is that illusion? You don't know. And it's again this journey to go find her daughter, and this whole issue is just this physical journey more to see again how she could find her family, but it's also this emotional journey, this kind of headspace weird journey, which I really enjoyed. So Sunflower issue 5 gets 4.5 stars. Been really enjoying it. Artwork, story, and I can't wait to see what happens in the final issue. So moving on to number 2, which is Star-Lord issue 7. Now, I will say the reason it wasn't pick of the week is I do think the artwork is a little weird at times with the facial expressions, and some of like just the facial features, I would say. Peter looks a little off there, but the story itself for Peter and Kitty's relationship is on point. I love what Sam Humphries has been doing with Kitty and Peter, and here it's them on this game show and saying, oh, let's pretend, we'll pretend. And then Peter says some truthful stuff of like saying, oh, well, you're a pretender. The reason that you wanted to be Star-Lord is because you want everyone to like you. And then Kitty gets hurt and says, well, you said some pretty mean stuff over there. So now it's Kitty still having the opportunity to leave and leave Peter, but because she loves him, she won't, and will tell the truth to the Collector, like, this is actually how we broke up. And then there's this fun moment that Rocket and Groot should be answering their phone while Peter's clicking his heels saying, guys, save us, and they're totally ignoring them because they're playing like this chess game. It's a really fun issue, and if you enjoy Kitty and Peter's relationship, this is a must-read. I love Kitty, as you know, and I really love this relationship, and it's another great issue. So go read Star-Lord issue 7, and that's my second pick of the week, or second pick, sorry. Alright, so what was number 1? And pick of the week was Spider-Woman issue 7. I had a blast reading this, seeing Jessie and Spider-Woman fighting each other, but also seeing how their stories are kind of similar, where Jessie's been manipulated by Cindy, and now he's not a superhero because he's not really a martyr. He doesn't really understand, like, oh, well, if this is happening in another world, this doesn't affect you, so why are you doing this? But at the same time, Jesse's not like an evil guy. He's like, well, I don't really want to do this for Cindy, but it's more just a job I gotta do to stay alive. But now it's like Jesse's on Jessica's team, and they're understanding each other as parents, and I love, there's this moment where they're fighting, and then Jessica's kid is crying, and then Jessica says, hey, can I like handle that? And Jesse's like, yeah, sure. So it's those fun moments between those two. It's like you're in the middle of a fight and now you're just gonna like go change the baby. So I had a blast reading this, but it also progresses the story of learning about Jesse's background, Gwen trying to decide more about her abilities. So I really enjoyed it. I give Spider-Woman issue 7 4.5 stars, and that's my pick of the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic You Know. Let me know in the comments below what was your pick of the week, what was your worst pick of the week, and everything in between, and I will see you guys later. Of course, I have Comic You Know episode next week. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. I'll see you guys later. Bye.